course, the first conversation around taxing the rich and the powerful in Nigeria started, of course, under the Jonathan's administration, when the then finance minister says there will be taxes on cognac and expensive brandies and other luxury goods, including your wristwatches, your shoes and other apparels, those big jumbo jets sitting idle across the country, dozens of them. So the Buhari's administration coming in with oil prices nosediving and Nigeria's revenue nearly in the water. It's a time to kick in the taxman knocking on your doors and mine as well. Yomi Olugbero is a partner with Deloitte Nigeria and is the West Africa leader for tax matters. We're continuing the conversation on the new amnesty for tax. Thank you very much. Let's continue the conversation. Everywhere you go in the world, it's all about Nigerians. What does the government want with this? We're looking at tax havens. We're looking at illicit financial flows. It looks like this time around, the Buhari's administration, via the Ministry of Finance, Kemi Adeosun, are going in an international offensive, as it were, to say this is an economic diplomacy, and we need to get this money back in.
Absolutely so, and it's a little more than that. So what the Ministry of Finance did was to actually set up a set of crack team, if you like to use that word, Project Lighthouse it was called, and they mine data available from BVN, NCC, travel information, properties spread all around the world, and just trying to compare the lifestyle, the expected, kind of net worth of individual and who is within the tax net. So this isn't actually focused only on the rich folks, it's actually on the entire country. So corporates, individuals, businesses, as at the last counts, the number of registered individual taxpayers is said to be around 14 million. Used to be around 10 million or thereabout. So with the aggression that FRS and some of the tax authorities have adopted in the last few years, they've been able to move it to about 14 million. But that's just about 1/5 of those who are involved in active business in Nigeria. The number is put around 70 million. So the gap is massive. So what the government has said is, we know the level of compliance is massive, and we just don't want to go out to clamp down on everybody. Can we open up the space? There was a trial that was done last year with a 45 days amnesty, but very restrictive, very limited. It was open for just 3 years, 2013 to 2015, and it was available only for 45 days and only corporate. But this time around, it's a partnership between the federal and all of the states, because as you know, this is a federal structure. The personal income taxes of individuals are payable to states where they are resident, and that's why you saw many of the governors and many of the state tax officials at the signing ceremony of the VAIDS, because this impacts them as much, if not more, than it does the federal government. So that's exactly what we're trying to do. So the government says they're looking into gathering maybe additional 4 million into the pool, and that will raise it to about 18 million or thereabout.
4 million taxpayers.
4 million taxpayers. And that's still scratching the surface.
180 million people.
Absolutely.
But again, if you look at this, Yomi, for us, in terms of unpack this for us from a technical point of view, tax evasion and tax versus tax avoidance versus illicit financial flows. Unpack these three for us.
Okay, so the whole question borders around compliance and whether you are deliberately running away from the taxman, or you doing some smart thing to reduce your taxes and all of that. And this is the concept I actually use. I have this, what I call the compliance quadrant, and I put all the taxpayer into 4 baskets. On the bottom left are the people that I call ignorant defaulters. They don't know what their obligations are, they are not so aware, they're not knowledgeable, and for those kind of people, the government needs to engage them and educate them on the bottom left. On top of that are the people that I call intentional defaulters. So these are the crooks. So they have the money, they know the law, and they're just running away.
That is tax avoidance.
That is tax evasion. That's the
like
illegal.
You're trying to evade an arrest.
Absolutely. So
now you use the word smart. That was the same word used by the U.S. President Donald Trump during the elections, being asked about his tax, and he said, "I'm the smart guy in the room." Who does the expression smart apply to? A tax avoider or tax evasion?
Well, you say it's more helpful to use in connection with tax avoidance. Tax avoidance essentially means you using the legal means, you're looking at the provisions in the law. And there are several incentives, several reliefs that many people are not aware of. But just by being tax-wise, as I like to say, just as being close to your tax advisors. So they're able to tell you this is the kind of business that you could do that will give you a favorable tax regime. These are the kind of places to invest in. You're talking capital market earlier on. If a company gets income from dividends outside of the 10% withholding tax, it is called frank investment income. It's no longer taxable. Whereas other type of business activity is taxed at 30%. That's some kind of avoidance.
That's been smart.
That's been smart. That's been wise. That's been tax-wise. That's what tax avoidance is. But evasion is what actually happened, and it is what is prevalent in the country.
So we're dealing here with more of tax evasion in Nigeria than tax avoidance.
Maybe both, but more of evasion.
More of evasion.
More of evasion. I gave you statistics of the number of registered taxpayers. How can you possibly explain having just 214 people paying taxes in excess of 20 million naira in a year? How can you possibly explain having less than 1,000 taxpayers?
When on a Lagos road or Abuja road, you find a particular vehicle costs about 60 to 70 million naira.
Absolutely.
Just one single vehicle.
Absolutely so.
Amazing.
Absolutely so. I still can't understand why the tax to GDP ratio is exactly where it is. Why federal government share of income tax revenue in a year is less than 1 billion naira. These numbers just don't add up. Look at the consumption pattern. Look at our GDP, for example, and look at what the VAT rate is. VAT is 5%. All right? Unless a product or service is exempted or zero rated. Multiply 5%, leave all the allowances for exempted items, for zero-rated items, and multiply 5% by the total consumption, and just try to mirror how close that is with the total VAT revenue. You're just going to go bonkers because the numbers don't speak to each other.
This is